All right, Reagan, let's wrap up this pod with the Detroit Lions, the NFC runner-ups last year, coming off a 12-5 season, man, in which they were awesome. The win total this year, 10.5, a little lower. I mean, given the state that the Packers and Bears have gotten better.
Yeah, that's obviously
understandable.
What it is. Yeah.
Some key losses, Jonah Jackson, Cam Sutton, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Some key adds, Carlton Davis, DJ Reader, Marcus Davenport, and Kevin Zeitler. I believe they got better on paper, in my opinion. They did blow a 17-point halftime lead to San Francisco in the NFC Championship game. Brandon Ayuk broke their hearts with that crazy catch down inside the 5. But I think Dan Campbell's boys are hungry to get back to that stance to this year. Reagan, how high are you on the Detroit Lions?
Last year I was low on them. This year I'm high on them. My biggest thing was, well, I'll start off. I got them going 11-6. But my biggest thing was the fact that their secondary was so fucking bad. But this year, you know what they did? They go out and address it. First round pick. They go and get Terrion Arnold, the cornerback out of Bama, who some regarded as the number 1 corner. Then in the second round, why not go double dip? They go and get Ernest Rakestraw, crazy name right now, just a crazy name, but out of Missouri.
Great name.
And
it sounds like he's going to be good from his name.
Yeah. And then in free agency, they get Carlton Davis. So they go out and get 3 corners. And that was my biggest critique of the Lions last year, that they just would bleed points. Their secondary was terrible. Then they go and get Marcus Davenport, a guy we've seen be dominant in this league at points. I mean, I don't know what he's got left in the tank now, but still a good move. They went out and made a lot of moves in the offseason on the defensive side of the ball. And guess what? They kept Ben Johnson, too. That's massive. I mean, he was one of the hottest names being thrown around there in the offseason, and they kept him. So I'm super happy about that. That's one of the biggest reasons I'm so high on him. I mean, 11-6, it should be even higher, but the fact that Green Bay and the Bears are going to be even better, I find it hard to believe that they don't. I would find it hard to believe that they would go 4-0 in those games, 3-1 at best, in my opinion. And I will say, I mean, obviously the running back duo of Montgomery and Gibbs was crazy last year. But one thing I want to point out for fantasy with this team, Gibbs, his ADP's at 14. Montgomery's at 62. So Montgomery is such a value this year in fantasy, where everyone's just expecting Gibbs to become the guy. I think it's going to be a timeshare. Well, why would the Lions go?
Why would they change what they did last year?
Why would they change from it? Maybe Gibbs will be more involved. I mean, obviously he's more involved this pass catching. He had 52 catches last year, so he's going to be the pass catching back. But Montgomery's still going to be the goal line guy. I mean, Gibbs, most of his touchdowns were just big runs that he ended up cashing in. But I have no doubt in my mind that even if it's like, I honestly think it's going to be Montgomery still 60-40 in the regular season. Gibbs already has a hamstring injury, so I find that to be a very risky pick at 14, where Montgomery at 62 is a steal. I would be scooping that up all day, licking my chops if I could get that. So I love that a lot.
My guy loves licking his chops.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the big things, they were great against the run last year, terrible against the pass. So that's another thing. They just went out and fixed all the mistakes. They're like a team that realized that was their issue, and they went out and fixed it.
Like the Eagles. Very similar.
Yeah. And Hutchinson, too, 11.5 sacks. You expect that to get up to 15, hopefully, this year. Definitely, I don't even know if he's a sneaky candidate, but definitely a guy that's going to be hopefully getting into that top 5, if not top edge rusher in the league conversations after this year. If he can get up to that 15 number, which I totally think he can. So 11-6. I mean, obviously Jared Goff, big year last year. And like you said, I mean, they were one choke job away from being in the Super Bowl. So sky's the limit for this team. I think it's a Super Bowl or bust year again.
I have made my decision on who is going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. And it is the Detroit Lions. And that is going to be after a 13-4 regular season for the Lions. They are going to secure the number 1 seed in the NFC. And Reagan, if they were to get the number 1 seed, I know I texted you earlier and I said, my only concern with the Lions is if they don't win the division, I'm worried about them playing on the road in the playoffs because their offense is so high powered that when they play in a dome, it's almost unstoppable. And then I saw this stat. If they were to get the number 1 seed, 17 of their 20 games the entire season, assuming they did get to the Super Bowl, would have been played indoors. 17 of 20 games. Crazy. All they got to do is get the 1 seed, and it looks like it's going to line up pretty well for them. They are projected to face the 12th most difficult schedule this year. However, the 6th easiest schedule of opposing defenses. So here come on all those indoor tracks. Here come the shootouts. I love the Detroit Lions for fantasy purposes.
Yeah.
Offensively, I mean, come on. They led the NFL with 27 rushing touchdowns last year, ran for over 2,300 yards as a team. That Monty and Gibbs duo is the best in the league. Monty topped 1,000 yards for the second time in his career, had 13 touchdowns. Gibbs had nearly 1,300 all-purpose yards and added 11 touchdowns. Amon-Ra, first-team All-Pro after 119 catches and 1,500 yards.
Which I called.
Huh?
I said, which I called before the season last year. I said my prediction for him was to be the Offensive Player of the Year, which he did not win, but he definitely, you could have made a case he could have been. And
he was right there.
Over 100 catches, over 1,500 yards, and over 10 touchdowns, which he checked all those boxes. It's just hard when there's a guy like Tyreek Hill doing even more.
Before I continue, Reagan, give yourself a little pat in the back because that's a great call out of you. Attaboy. Laporta, as a rookie, 889 yards on 86 catches with 10 touchdowns. All were top 5 amongst all tight ends in the league. Legit. We usually tight ends struggle as rookies in the league. It's a tough adjustment period because you have to pick up so much in the offense, both blocking and receiving wise. Laporta is an absolute stud. Just those Iowa tight ends, man, they don't miss. The offensive line is the best in the league, in my opinion. Both Sewell and Taylor Decker ranked top 10 in ESPN's pass block win rate. Zeitler is an upgrade over Jonah Jackson. Zeitler was a Pro Bowler last year, was awesome for the Ravens, really good in pass pro. And Glasgow was second in ESPN's run block win rate last year, which hence why they ran for over 2,300 yards. This offensive line unit is sick. And Goff, behind that offensive line, and with those weapons, has shown since the second half of 2022 that he's the guy to lead the ship here, and that's why they gave him that extension and paid him. He loves being in Detroit. He's living up to his draft status now in Detroit. The biggest X factor for me for this offense is Jameson Williams. He has only had 395 yards and 3 touchdowns on 25 catches in 18 games. They took him 12th overall, if you recall. He showed flashes in the playoffs last year of brilliance, of that big playability. He will never be an 80-plus catch guy, but they don't need him to be that because Amon-Ra works the middle of the field so well and will take all those targets. Laporta's an absolute beast. He's got to be that over-the-top threat, that after-the-catch ability, the big play ability, the home run hitter. If he can be that and progress, they don't need him to catch the ball 80 times. He doesn't have to be a 1,000-yard receiver. But this offense could hit another level. I know I was saying that all of last year, but third year, man, it's time to see it. He showed flashes in the playoffs last year. Hopefully that gave him confidence heading into the offseason, and he's going to come out and be a dog this year. I've been holding on to him in Dynasty, man. It's like, come on, now's the time. You got to finally be that guy. Defensively, you mentioned they were great against the run, Reagan. They were the 3rd best team against the run. Oh, what'd they do? They added DJ Reader on the interior, which for the Bengals, when we mentioned on the AFC North pod, the season 2, episode 1, when Reader was on the field, they were the best run defense in the league. When he was off the field, they were the worst run defense in the league. Crazy splits for just one player in the interior. DJ Reader's that good, and he's a beast as an interior pass rusher, which would be huge for that secondary, which got toasted last year. Mm-hmm. They have some young players, right? You mentioned the draft picks that they took, Terrion Arnold and Ernest Rakestraw, which both are really good in coverage. Like, actually, Rakestraw fell a little bit to the second round. Like, if he would have came out in the draft the year before, he'd probably been a first-round pick because he was that good at Missouri in 2022. And Terrion Arnold was a beast at Alabama. So I love those additions. Should really boost the secondary. Aleem McNeil was great pass rushing from the interior as well. Had 5 sacks, over 10% pressure rate. Mentioned Hutchinson, 17.4% pressure rate, was 11th best in the league. 11.5 sacks. So his rookie year, I believe he had just under 10 sacks, I think, but his pressure rate was a lot worse. So he's showing that he's still going up. Like, he can be that guy that's pushing top 5 in the league in sacks, like you mentioned. I love Brian Branch in the slot. He was really good last year. Kirby Joseph, yeah, I mean, he's kind of toast at safety. The safeties were what worry me here. I love the additions they made at corner. The linebacker core, Alex Anzalone, former Gator, go Gators. He's really good. Jack Campbell was good against the run, but he kind of got hurt a little bit in coverage last year. Anzalone's the better guy in coverage, so Campbell's got to clean that up, but he was a rookie. Ultimately, I think the defense will be better this year. I don't think they'll be an elite defense by any stretch, but I like the front that they're building. I like the young pieces they added in the secondary. Hopefully, the back end, the safeties can hold up and they don't get burnt toast. But I think there's going to be a lot of shootouts here, but I think the Lions are a team that's going to average over 30 points per game. I love the Detroit Lions. I love Dan Campbell. They play hard for him. I think he's showing that he's going to become one of the top coaches in the league. 13-4, the NFC's #1 seed, and my choice to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl, the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously made all the right moves. So, you know, and the fact that they were able to keep 4 of their 5 starting linemen is huge. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, and I think Zeitler's an upgrade over Jonah Jackson. Jonah Jackson was the weak link on the unit last year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I think it'll be about the same, maybe slightly better, like you're saying. So the fact that they were able to keep that intact, then Ben Johnson, I mean, they literally probably had one of the best off seasons out of any of the teams out there. They didn't lose much, and they just kept adding to it, and they added in the spots that were their weakest points. So
yeah,
they're really.
And I mentioned like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson as a key loss, but he didn't really play much last year. He was hurt for much of the season.
Yeah,
you know, like Cam Sutton wasn't great, so it's like, you know what? They
That's
didn't really
draft
lose
a guy like Brian Branch
much
last year in the second round, so you can let a guy like Chauncey Gardner walk.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Brian Branch was really good, really good. Yeah. They just keep going to that Bama well in the secondary. Hopefully, Terrion Arnold follows what Brian Branch did. Your MVP for the Detroit Lions?
Aiden Hutchinson. He's going to get up to the 15 sack mark this year. I feel very confident in that. He's going to take the next step into that elite tier of pass rushers. He's a guy who actually has, I think, as many picks as Sauce Gardner, which is hilarious. But he's a guy that, you know,
that is hilarious.
he's gonna put them over that next. He's gonna get them over the hump. I mean, you see how big of an impact a guy like T.J. Watt, a guy like Myles Garrett, a guy like Micah Parsons has on their defense. Like when they miss time, everything changes. So if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be the MVP of the defense. We know the offense is sick. I mean, you can make a case for a bunch of those guys, but I think if one of those guys is to miss time, the offense won't skip a beat. Where if he misses any time, that defense is going to be bleeding points. So he is the most important player to this defense, and he is my MVP.
I went Amon-Ra St. Brown, all-pro player, 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's so good working the middle of the field, and him and Jared Goff have developed such a strong connection. I think he's vitally important for that offense. I'm going to go Amon-Ra St. Brown. Your X factor.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously on the defensive side of the ball again. It would be Terrion Arnold. I mean, they spent the first-round pick on him. I mean, a lot of people said he could have been the #1 guy out of all the cornerbacks. I mean, it was between him and Mitchell, kind of as the top 2 guys going back and forth. I mean, Cooper DeJean's name was floated around, a couple different guys as well. But he really is my X factor because the secondary was so bad last year, so he's going to need to step in and be that #1 guy. I mean, Carlton Banks, maybe he'll step in. But they spent the capital on him. They believe in him. So he is my X factor.
Yeah, I mean, I like that pick. I went in this as the secondary as a totality as my X factor. Obviously, Arnold and Rakestraw. So you're assuming Carlton Davis is going to start at one corner. He's the vet. Although he wasn't a stud for Tampa Bay. Like he's still a good quality player.
No. Well, Tampa Bay, that's where you beat them is in the secondary. You don't beat them on the ground. You beat them in the secondary. Very similar defense to Detroit, where if you're going to beat them, you're going to beat them in the secondary.
Absolutely. He wasn't a stud there, but he is a veteran presence. You'd think Arnold has the shoe-in to start because he was the first-round pick and Rakestraw was the second, but that should be a fun – maybe Rakestraw plays in the slot too a little bit, and you can have Branch float around at safety because he has that flexibility. That'd be fun. But, yeah, I mean, it's a secondary as a whole for me. A lot of young players. They're the hole on this team. So if they're going to be in a lot of shootouts, they need those young bucks to lock it down. Rookie of the year.
I'm going to go with Terrion Arnold here. I mean, if he's my X factor, he's got to be my rookie of the year. I'm expecting a big year from him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there weren't a ton of options here. You can pick your poison with the corners. I'm going to go with Arnold as well because he was the first rounder and the better prospect, assuming that. I mean, you look at their other guys they took. Giovanni Manu, 4th-round offensive lineman out of Canada. Very weird. And, I mean, given that the Lions have the best offensive line in the league, Taylor Decker is a free agent after this year, so we'll see how much money they have to give to him. But they also traded their 3rd-round pick next year to take Manu in the 4th round this year, which was odd. You don't really see that often. He's also out of Canada, so I don't know. They've built such a phenomenal offensive line that I trust their evaluation of offensive linemen, but still a little strange. Sion Vaki's getting a little bit of praise from Dan Campbell right now after the preseason. He's a college safety being converted to a running back. He only had 42 career rushing attempts over the last 5 seasons, but yeah, I mean, Dan Campbell says he keeps getting better and better, and he looked pretty good in the preseason, but you're not going to say a running back that they took in the 5th round is going to be rookie of the year. So
Especially,
it's got to be one of the DBs.
Montgomery in front of him.
Yeah, dude. Like,
although they did use 3 running backs at times. I mean, Craig Reynolds, I remember, came in for 1 play last year and punched it in for a touchdown. And we were like, I think we had Montgomery or Gibbs to score, and we were all like, what the fuck is he doing in there? But he came in for 1 play and scored a touchdown.
The hell? That was the worst. So, you're betting on, like, all right, who's going to be the Lions running back that scores? And you're trying to pick your poison between Gibbs and Montgomery. And
shout out Kutztown legend, though. Kutztown legend right there, Craig Reynolds.
Let's go, Big G. All right, your depoy. Your MVP's Hutch.
Yeah, Hutch. Yeah,
my depoy's Hutch. Come on. Yeah. Let's be honest, man. Let's be honest. Damn, the Jaguars should have took Hutch number 1, huh?
Damn. Or sauce.
Drock, get your ass in here.
Let's end the night. How we do it. How Drock do it. All right. It was unnecessary. Call me out for the Lions.
Yeah, can I tell the story? Story?
Yeah, but I
want to hear. I want to hear both sides. There's 2 sides to every story.
So we just finished dinner, and this is like 20 minutes before we started recording, and I just finished my Lions research, and I'm like, God, I'm so high on the Lions right now. So I'm really excited. So I go, Dave, what's your Drock lock for the Lions? He goes, I want it to be a surprise. I'm like, okay. And he's like, I'll just tell you. I'm like, can I guess first? He goes, sure, you can guess. I go, Amon-Ra 1,500 yards. He goes, dude, what? How'd you know that? I'm like, yeah, Amon-Ra 1,500 or more yards. Slim it.
Yeah, we're changing it though. We're changing it.
Now he's changing it because he's like, did you see my phone, bro? I'm like, no, dude. I just kind of had a hunch. I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, did I send him
a hunch?
Did I send him a screenshot with it? But no.
No, I guessed it. I'm like that. Well, now I'm taking Amon-Ra 1,500 yards because that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
And
I love it. I loved it. I loved it too, but we switched it up. I'm gonna go Jahmyr Gibbs to have 1,000 rushing yards and 500 receiving yards as well. That's at plus 450. I like it, but my Amon-Ra pick was good. But
just so everyone knows, Jahmyr Gibbs last year had 945 rushing yards, 316 receiving yards. Close.
I'm so excited to see my reflection in that cue ball head. I'm so excited. That actually is a good pick. I like that a lot, Dave.
I like the odds on that. Yeah, I mean, you've seen the second year.
He was close last year. He's only going to get more touches this year. I mean, I still don't think he's going to be I hate his ADP of where he's going right now, but I still think he's going to be putting up a big year. I agree. Montgomery's it's just going to be a 50-50 timeshare, but I think he'll be more involved early, which last year took him, he wasn't super involved early on. Like I remember in that Chiefs game, I think he had 8 carries for the night, but he had 60 yards opening night.
Yeah, he looked
great.
It
took a while for him to really be involved fully. So I think this year he'll get over that 1,500 mark because he was so close last year with coming on kind of midway season towards the end in the playoff run where he really got heavily involved.
Yeah, Montgomery played 14 games last year, and Gibbs was awesome when Montgomery was out. But Montgomery's also he's been a durable player over his career. 16, 15, 13, 16, and 14 games played. So for Gibbs to really pay dividends at that ADP that you mentioned, Reagan, ranked 14th right now, you're almost like, what's his ceiling? If Montgomery were to be out for a significant period of time, his ceiling could be a top 3 fantasy running back. But with both of them there to justify taking Gibbs 14th overall, or even I don't know. I would stay away from Gibbs in that regard because it's a 2-headed monster that's awesome. And as productive as Gibbs is and as efficient as he is, the volume just isn't there right now. But yeah, he was 55 rushing yards and 184 receiving yards away from hitting that last year, Drock. And you'd imagine he's going to get better. This offense should be just as good, if not better. So certainly there.
Slam
All right, Reagan, that wraps up the NFC North. Anything you would like to add before we close it out for the night?
No, man. I mean, all the fantasy and all that good stuff, best ball, that fun stuff, we'll highlight on Wednesday. I'm pumped for that. I mean, it's not every day you get to listen to a big-time fantasy player give his advice out. I honestly hope you and Dave take some stuff away from it because, I want you guys to be able to compete in your other leagues you guys are in. So I'm really hoping you guys take something away from it.
Oh my God, I'm gonna do everything in my power to beat you in Dynasty this year. It's not even funny. I can't listen to this for a whole nother year.
Yeah, but you will have to.
Yeah.
And Dave, I want to hear some Drox locks for fantasy too. I'd love to hear him give us some locks on which fantasy players he thinks are going to be locked and loaded studs.
Absolutely.
Basically, my whole dynasty roster. So just get ready for it.
All right, guys. So if you hear that, odds are you want to fade those picks. He's a guy that's been very close to doing the punishment a lot.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
50-50 chance, but
50-50 chance. All right, boys. Thanks for tuning in. Reagan, I'll see you on Wednesday, buddy.
Yes. Yes, you will. And I will see you then as well.